Hi, welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Bay's Female Founders in Crypto series. I'm talking to Janelle Chalouhi today. She is the founder and CEO of VenusVerse, which is a beautiful NFT collection that you can see on venusverse.ca. But she is also helping incubate female founders in Web3 by providing educational resources and is soon starting an incubator for Web3 founders that will be launching sometime this year. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Janelle so she can introduce herself, and then we'll kick off with some questions about her experience as a founder, how she got there, and she'll be giving you some advice on what you should do if you're interested in moving into this space. With that, I'll hand over to you, Janelle.
So my name is Janelle Chalouhi, and I'm CEO and founder of VenusVerse, which is Canada's first NFT collection. We have 2022 NFTs within our collection, educational session, especially for women around Web3, and then now an incubator also for Web3 startups.
I don't really know where to start because I was going through your LinkedIn bio and it's super impressive and it's really fascinating what you've done. I guess what would be interesting to begin with maybe is to understand your kind of creative background and then how you journeyed into crypto subsequently.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, I have an undergraduate degree in art. So born Canadian, but I was educated in the US. Our paths took us to Boston at a young age. So I ended up finishing up high school there and went to university right outside of Boston, Holy Cross, a small Jesuit university, and ended up doing a double major because I've always had a passion in art, always gravitated back towards art. But the starving artist syndrome is real. And I figured, you know what, it's not going to make me any money. I'm going to do it anyways. So I decided to marry my passion with political science. So both studio art and political science were my undergraduate degrees. And then I went on later on to get a master's in business journalism. But how I ventured into it was actually back early 2021. My husband was reading up on NFTs and he looked at the article and then looked at me and said, Janelle, you have to read this article about NFTs. It's art, it's tech, it's you. So at first I was like, can you just summarize it? He's like, no, you got to read this. This is important stuff. So I actually did. I started reading it and got kind of drawn right into it, not only because of the art, obviously, which a lot of historical revolutions started with art. We don't talk about that very much, but art really has started a lot of revolutions in the past. But it was because of the authentication process. You know, being an artist, I really appreciate the authenticity and putting your mark behind art because there's so many replicas out there, and we're seeing it now, obviously, in the OpenSea environment too. There's a lot of replicas out there, and just having something that was an authentication process really drew me in because the innovation behind that is extensive. So I always talk about it as starting with art. NFTs started with art and now have become the art of the possible. So that's kind of how I was drawn into it. And as I started looking into it more and looking into Web3 more and learning more about it and started talking to more women, I realized that the statistic I had come across a while back, which is back then, it was in 2018 in the Globe and Mail, the stat was 4% of women in Canada are into the crypto, NFT, and Web3 space, and 96% of men are. So I started validating that statistic. Yes, I know. I've moved that up to 5% just because I figured in the years the needle must have moved a little bit, but it'd be great to have some solid statistics around that now. But yeah, so that's essentially, I started talking to a bunch of women in my circle, all my friends. None of them were really into the crypto, NFT, or Web3 space, just very few. And I validated that statistic. And that's essentially, I realized that there's a fundamental issue in Canada and somebody has to solve for it. And I was ready to kind of do my thing and go down my own entrepreneurial journey. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to solve for this problem. And that's how we kind of kicked off.
Do you happen to know if that statistic holds true outside of Canada as well? Like, is it fairly uniform, do you think?
It's always lower with women in crypto for sure, crypto, Web3, and NFTs. So it's much lower in Canada, but the statistic is fairly low across the world. So I think in the US, it's something like 16%. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's around 16% of women, 1/6 that is. And I think it's around the same in Europe. So it's very low for women everywhere.
That's interesting. Do you have any thoughts as to why that might be?
Yeah, I get asked this question quite a bit. There's a number of reasons, and I think a lot of it has to do with the way women make decisions. And it's not a bad, we always look at it as, oh, we're risk adverse. We're not risk adverse. We just tend to make calculated decisions based on collective. So I always talk about women, how important the female perspective is in everything, whether it's politics, business, economics, whatever it might be. So important to have our perspective because we think for collectives for the most part, innately, just naturally we do. So I think when it comes for making decisions, especially when it's considered more risky decisions, we think about a whole host of things before jumping into it. So I think that has a lot to do with it, but also exposure. So I can definitely speak for Canada. When I first started getting into the space, and actually it was kind of global, there wasn't really a centralized entity to find this information. So I spent months researching this information, looking into it, what Web3 was, what NFTs were. I actually launched my own collection just to be able to learn from it. I haven't listed it yet, but I have a collection of my own that's minted aside from the VenusVerse collection, just to understand it and learn from it more. Because it's very hard to find this information. It's a little bit easier now, but when I started late November 2021, there was very little information out there. So I think that has a lot to do with it. It's about time, which is why our sessions are 75 minutes. We've basically not only consolidated the information, but we've also shortened the amount of time it takes for women to really understand what the world of Web3 is. Come in, not really knowing very much about it necessarily, but walking out understanding the whole gamut of what Web3 covers.
Yeah, that's stunning actually that November 2021, so last year, you still found that there was like a deficit of information to get about this space. Because, it's still early, but it's not that early. So that's quite interesting. I definitely agree with you on the first point about, I think, women being more risk aware. I think they don't plunge into new industries with quite the kind of gusto that men do. I wonder as well on the other point as to why there are more men involved and why it took you so long to get that information. Do you think that there is also maybe men tend to be gamers more often than women are, and therefore that kind of gaming industry had a bigger foothold in this space earlier on?
That's a very good point. Yes, there's definitely more gamers for sure. And even if you look at the platforms that are used, for example, right now, which Discord is a perfect example. I haven't built my community on Discord at all because none of the women I was talking to were in that space, but almost all the projects are actually on the Discord space. So from that person, Discord's a gaming platform. So yes, there are definitely a lot more gamers, but also if you think about the most, if we can call it, most industries that are heavily weighted towards men, if you think about the tech, obviously engineering, finance, a lot of those industries are heavily weighted towards men. And those are the ones who are jumping into this space because it is a tech space. It is a financial space. So you would tend to find more of them in there than you would women. But I would still say, I think it's a lot to do with encouragement too. I think women just also need to know that they're supported. And I don't know that we necessarily feel that all the time. Just coming from a background in tech, there's so many stories about the tech industry, which, is a fantastic industry, but unfortunately we've been struggling with it from a D&I perspective for the last 20 years. And we still haven't been able to rectify all the issues within the tech space when it comes to diversity and inclusion and the cognitive diversity that we need at the table in order to innovate. So I think it's just that men probably feel more supported. And they are also in the industries at the time where it's early adopter phase. So they have that competitive edge.
Maybe they care less about being supported.
Maybe they care less about being supported, and quite honestly, maybe that's what, that is what women need. We need that support. We need that circle to know that we can launch into something and we have that critical mass around us to help us get to where we need to go.
Yeah, for sure. So when you say that you had a tech background, can you sort of describe a little bit your journey into crypto in general? Because you've obviously come into it from a very kind of artistic NFT type perspective, but when did you first find out about crypto and how did you learn about it and kind of engage with the community?
So crypto itself, I've known about crypto for a very long time. I've known about crypto since, actually, I knew about blockchain since 2017. So when I was at Communitech, we had a conference called True North, And Consensus at the time had a foothold in Waterloo region, and they were looking to expand their brand. And so I became good friends with the individual who was running Consensus here. And for those of you who aren't aware, Consensus is a blockchain company, and obviously they're the ones who have MetaMask as well. And the CEO, Joe Lubin, is Canadian. So this is I was exposed to blockchain early on, and I had known about crypto for a while. But back then it was also considered the money of the dark web. So when I first heard about it, we've come a long way since, obviously, but that's how it started. And as for my journey, it really did start. I had invested a little bit before. I do believe in diversifying assets, and I, wasn't too heavily into it. My Web 2 world was kind of heavy and immersive, so I didn't have a chance to really dabble. But when I started looking into NFTs, that's really, I would say early 2021, when I started thinking, you know what, I really got to start doing more of this and start thinking more about this and diversifying my assets even more, because obviously there's something here that's growing incrementally. Before it was growing slowly and we're hearing about it, but then it started really reaching an insane amount of numbers when it came to what Bitcoin was valued at, what Ethereum was valued at. So I started at that time, started looking into it a little bit more.
Yeah, was it they say first slowly and then suddenly?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. So one of the questions I have about the NFTs, I don't know whether you have any insight into this, but why is it that they are built on Ethereum as opposed to the Bitcoin rails? Like, my understanding is that it's harder in some ways, like there's less flexibility to build on the Bitcoin rails, but do you have any insight into that, having kind of dabbled in minting your own, I guess?
I do. And actually, so this is my philosophy, and it could be debated, and that's totally fine, but Web3 was birthed with Ethereum, in my personal opinion. And what I mean by that is, so yes, we had Bitcoin, and we had blockchain obviously before that, but with Ethereum, what Ethereum was able to do was layer on NFTs, for example. So it is a technology where NFTs was layered on to that. And then smart contracts obviously is an NFT, so that was layered on to that. And then if you think about the whole interacting in the metaverse, you're going to need NFTs, you're going to need avatars, you're going to need all these digital assets. So with the birth of Ethereum, what they did was they were able to layer on a bunch of different applications that came with Ethereum in the form of NFTs, smart contracts, all of which haven't been done on Bitcoin, obviously with Bitcoin, but all of that technology is layered onto Ethereum. So and actually, the reason why I went with OpenSea in particular, there were a bunch of different marketplaces that were launched at the time that I was launching our collection. But the reason why I went with OpenSea, number one, it was the biggest one out there, and from a security perspective, I felt that this is probably the best way to go. Number two, all the big collections were on there, obviously, so we wanted to be on that platform. But also, just number three, it is the Ethereum was actually the original crypto for OpenSea, so it just made sense to me that they had obviously been working together for a while, so I really wanted to dabble into that platform. But Web3 was birthed with ETH, in my opinion, and it is a Canadian technology. So Ethereum was built at the University of Waterloo, 5 minutes from my home. So Vitalik did drop out of school, did drop out of university, but he built it right here with the professors at the university. And it is a Canadian technology. And this is a Canadian game to win, like Web3 as a whole. We also built AI. So, we have a lot of bandwidth, and we have a lot of technical bench strength in order to be able to win in the game of Web3.
That's fascinating. So when you started your journey, so VenusVerse, I love the name, by the way.
Thank you.
How did you come up with that?
So it's interesting because I wanted it to be a nod to women in general. So Venus is a planet, Venus is the goddess. I figured, you know what, the dualities of those two, they have to be married into a verse somewhere in the metaverse. So that's how the name was born.
Amazing. So your job, your I guess mission there really is to kind of educate people, provide them with access to Web3, and then also to host these NFT collections. So what was your journey in kind of gaining your own understanding? Like, what resources did you use to actually learn about the metaverse and NFTs and Ethereum, to then kind of progress to actually building out the service and the curriculum that goes with it?
Yeah, so I spent quite a bit of time immersed into reading more about what Web3 was, like going historically into articles. I've attended a few conferences and summits. I had taken a couple sessions, expert sessions, so to speak. But again, it was just honestly at first just me navigating the internet between Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all those places that you can find the information. You could find the information back then, but it was incredibly decentralized. You didn't even know what to search at the time because it was that much of an early technology. So really my own research, but with regards to the NFTs as a whole, I just dived in. I just decided, you know what, I'm an artist. I have a background in art. I have all this photography that I've taken throughout the years. I want to play with it. So I listed, it was 111 NFTs, and honestly started playing with it, started dabbling with it after I minted it, and just understanding how to, you know, what the smart contract was all about, how to code the properties, you know, all the intricacies behind that, you know, making mistakes and then understanding like what those mistakes really, what I learned from those mistakes. But it had a lot to do with kind of being more hands-on. I'm very much a hands-on person. I learn more by doing. So that's what I decided to do. If I'm going to teach it, I might as well jump in and understand how to do it myself. So even before I launched VenusVerse, I was in that space.
Can you talk a bit about the user experience of the platform itself? So if people sign up, like what can they expect and what's the journey like?
Yeah, so as a whole, Web3 technology still has a long way to go, just as a whole. I would say from a user experience, look, OpenSea is incredibly inundated. You know, I mean, if I still haven't gotten my blue check, even though I'm a validated collection by a third party. So I went through a third party process in order to validate my collection. And I will say this has been a very deep part of my journey, is understanding really it's an unregulated space, right? And I really wanted to lead by example. I wanted to be an asset to women, especially who are looking to dive in. So I spent a lot of time with lawyers trying to understand, okay, what is okay, what isn't okay? How can I lead by example, essentially, in order to be able to establish best practices?
So just to kind of clarify then for people watching and listening who maybe aren't familiar with OpenSea, so that's like the biggest NFT platform essentially for minting and you know, distributing NFT collections. So is the VenusVerse collection hosted on OpenSea?
It is hosted on OpenSea. Yes, I decided to host it directly onto OpenSea for a number of reasons. A lot of people mint to their website or mint to other marketplaces, but I specifically decided to go with OpenSea. So yes, it is a marketplace. And as of now, it's an NFT marketplace specifically for art. But for example, Time Magazine launched their first NFT as Time Magazine with Vitalik on the cover. And they listed it in OpenSea. And I foresee a lot more companies, you know, book publishing companies, magazines, you name it, they're all going to be listing on marketplaces. They may have their own eventually. Insurance companies will actually use NFTs to list our valuables eventually, and they will have their own blockchain and marketplace eventually. But yes, OpenSea is the platform we use right now. They are big. They grew exponentially very quickly. So obviously keeping up with the demand is going to be an issue for them. So from that perspective, like I said, I haven't gotten my blue check yet. You know, and I think I applied for it in February or March. But having gone through a third-party validation process, I really don't mind. I don't care that I don't have that quite yet, because what I've gone through and the authentication that my art's been given or our art's been given actually holds up in a place like Sotheby's or Christie's. If anybody wants to sell their art, resell their art, they can do that because it has been validated, officially validated. So
oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that that was the process. Can you talk about what exactly they validate? I mean, are they kind of validating like who you are, that you've got a firm address, a registered company, like that kind of stuff? Is that what they're verifying?
So with OpenSea themselves, what they do is just, I guess you have to be invited to be validated. And I don't know how they vet the collections, to be completely honest. I don't know how our collection hasn't been invited quite yet, given our mission, given the fact that we're giving 10% of our profits to civic action. And obviously our art is authenticated art and hand drawn, by the way. Which is different. A lot of this is fully generative art. Ours has been hand drawn, and I married generative art just to be able to put pieces together. But I had a digital artist do all of them.
Can you describe, sorry, what's generative art?
Sure, yeah, that's a good question. So generative art is really art through AI. It's through AI and coding. So a lot of these big collections, the reason why they can create 10,000 pieces is not because they have somebody sitting there drawing 10,000 pieces. They all have to be unique. Every single NFT has to be unique on the blockchain. That's basically what it comes down to. There can't be two of the same. So the way, in order to ensure that, the way they do it is they have basically built their collection through generative art to ensure that no two pieces are the same. So all the properties are different, or there's a little bit of a difference in one than the other, but that's all been done through coding and generative art. So the way we did our art is that I hired an artist to actually draw out. So I had the vision and, basically built it upon my journey, lived all across the world. And I really wanted to see a collection of 2022 women from across the world come together. So I sent her, my vision, the ideas, the kind of styles I wanted to see, the kind of women I wanted to see in the collection. She started drawing them. She drew 114 hand drawn, 10 of which are team members. 104 are actually animated NFTs. So some of them are blinking their eyes. Some of them have flowers budding behind them. And that's very unique for a female collection. I don't know any other female collection that has that right now, actually. And then what we did was I sent her all the other properties that I wanted. And then we took those properties and then all the base layers and everything. And I hired a generative artist to build out the other 1,908 of the collection, to kind of a nice nod between the traditional and the tech and how they can come together to help grow. But we did not do our entire collection from generative art. It was hand drawn.
So the hand drawn pieces of art, the way that you create an NFT from them, then is that by photographing them digitally and then uploading that onto the NFT?
No, these hand-drawn ones, we actually drew them. They were actually drawn, digitally drawn, and then we uploaded them just from the actual program.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So you've actually done the hand drawing on the device. Yeah, yes. I was listening the other day to there's a podcast with I think it was Joe Rogan and Mark Andreessen, and they were talking about that. Was it DALL-E? There's that AI that can now create art.
Oh, so there's so much AI out there that can create art right now. Yeah, everybody's.
It was wild. It was wild. I went and looked at it online, and it basically creates original pieces of art. And so you put inputs like, I think it's keywords and things like that, and then it creates this image. So it was really quite mind blowing. Actually, I was like, this is where we're headed. Yes. But it's nice to hear that people are actually doing stuff by hand, so to speak, and kind of, creating the art from there. And can you then, if you wanted to actually take a piece of physical art and turn it into an NFT by photographing it, you can do that?
Yes, absolutely. You can do that very easily, actually. So yes, a lot of artists, or even photographs themselves, if you take pictures, like I said, my collection is all photography. I did digitally enhance it, but it's all photography. But yes, that's really what it does. When you mint it to the blockchain, it establishes that it's been created on the blockchain. So whether it's a picture of a painting that you've done, or whether it's a photograph, once you mint it, basically what you're doing is putting it out there on the blockchain that this is your creation, you created it, and it belongs to you.
Fascinating. So the education then piece on, well, I guess actually before I ask you that, if somebody wants to do a piece of art and host it on VenusVerse, what's the process for them to be able to do that?
So I haven't gone down that path yet. We have talked about basically having artists come in and list on our website as well, just to give them profile. We have been profiling a few artists that have launched into Web3 since we've been speaking to them. So we do that through our newsletter. But really what we want to do is the incubator space is a space where we're going to be able to host a lot of that to help not only NFT artists, but anyone who has an idea about Web3 or a startup within Web3, because right now there's not a lot of support for Web3 companies or Web3 ideas. So what I really wanted to do was launch an incubator to be able to help artists and others launch into this world.
It's fascinating. So how does one do that? So if they join VenusVerse, then are you hosting classes online, or is it just self-study? How are you structuring that educational piece?
Yeah, the educational piece. So the educational piece itself, right now, we had one-on-one sessions. We were doing that for about 7 months, but what we decided was to kind of do more of a self-guided a session, I guess. So we're going to be uploaded. The last session just happened yesterday, the one-on-one session. We're going to be uploading the Web3 sessions right now. And then anyone who wants to take it can actually sign up for, through our portal and do the self-guided Web3 session. But we're also now going to be building out more of the curriculum. So what the first one was a general, what is Web3, everything from blockchain to crypto to metaverse to NFTs, you name it. But now what we're going to do is dive deeper into each of those. So what is blockchain? What are NFTs? And we're going to do deeper dives on each of those streams. And then we'll have those uploaded and self-guided as well.
Oh, that's
so
great.
kind of a centralized library. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you planning on building out some kind of a community for people in that space to interact with each other? Like, what's the next step?
Yes. So actually for the collection itself, I do have a community. We decided, again, not to opt into Discord. We decided to opt into WhatsApp. So anyone who wants to join is more than welcome to let me know, and I'll add them to the community. So we do have a small community there, but yes, the idea is to grow the community and to grow the platform even further, both for the collection and for those who are signing up for the sessions as well. And then all three of those will be married together eventually. So we have the incubator piece coming alive as well too.
Oh, fantastic. And is that incubator piece then going to be like an online course that people can sign up to?
It would be less of an online course, but it's going to be a digital incubator. So the way incubators run right now and accelerators run right now, basically you have to be, or it's preferred that you're located within the space or within that incubator or accelerator. But the way I'm doing it is we're building it out digitally so that anybody across Canada can have access to it. And the idea would be that they would have access to advisors. They can test their ideas, they can get feedback on their ideas. We can help them figure out exactly how to take it from idea and then how to grow that. Or they might come in already as a startup with an idea already kind of testing, and we just take them from there and help them grow their business as well. So yes, that is being built out as we speak.
That's fantastic. So can you talk to me a little bit about your journey in being a founder? Because I don't think you had any founder background really, apart from maybe your like artistic endeavors. Is that right? And how did you learn the skills that you're now utilizing as a business owner?
So I did have my own consulting firm in the Middle East. I started the first nonprofit consulting firm way back when I was living in the Middle East. So that was boot camp. that was definitely boot camp for a number of reasons, just because it was the first of its kind, and nonprofits, when I first started consulting, weren't really coming up or weren't really as popular as they are right now back then. So it was a little bit of a journey, but quite honestly, I had some great luck with some fantastic clients and worked very closely with them and built the business from there. But my last 5 years was at Communitech, and Communitech is an incubator accelerator, an innovation hub that not only helps startups succeed and grow, but we also helped a lot of the big brands innovate and help them figure out how to work with startups as well. So I was heavily entrenched in that for 5 years. And prior to that, I was at the University of Waterloo for 5 years. So approximately 5 years. So I was also in that environment as well. So it was a little bit tech heavy for the last 10 years. And I do understand founders' journeys and obviously all the ins and outs and what it takes for the most part. But you know what? I didn't really overthink it as a founder, to be honest with you. I just saw that there was a problem. There was a need. Women will be left behind again. And I decided that, you know what, I'm ready for something new. I was ready for something new. I know that I can lead. I know that I can be a founder, and I have a track record that, I like to get things done and done well. So I decided, you know what, there's not much time to think. That's our problem as women. I think we think and think and think and, think ourselves out of things sometimes, unfortunately, just because we're thinking about everything. So I just decided to take that leap of faith.
Fantastic. Can you give some advice then that you might share with other founders? Because you're obviously very well versed with dealing with early stage companies, and you're now kind of cultivating that in the digital art space, I should say. But like, what kind of advice would you give to women who maybe either have an idea or they're curious and they maybe think that they would like to start a business and they're exploring different options?
Yeah. So first and foremost, if there's a woman out there who's thinking about a business and has an idea, congratulations, good for you. That's awesome. That's the first step. A lot of us don't get there as quickly because again, we're so busy with other things. But I would say once you have an idea, do not hesitate to follow it. Do not hesitate to dive deeper into it, to see what it is that's attracting you to it. I think the biggest thing is the passion piece. You know, we always talk about the altruistic, the passion, but there has to be passion there. There has to be something that you're doing that's motivating you day in and day out, that's basically drawing you to it, making you wake up every morning wanting to do this, but also try to solve that big societal problem. I think that's the beauty of Web3. That's what I'm drawn to the most about Web3 is the ESG component, the environmental, social, and governance. And I feel that everything in Web3 should be laced with ESG. We should all be working to make this world a better place. So, and like I said, because women think for collectives, no one better to lead and no one better to jump in and make decisions and build than women who are thinking for collectives, because we all know we can use better decisions right now in this day and age. And all of our systems are pretty much broken. So like I said, from an economic, political, social standpoint, global systems are actually broken. This is our chance to reset. So if you have an idea, and if you think, I would encourage, especially around Web3, not just about founding a company, but I would say now in this early adopter phase, if you're thinking about launching a company, I would think about the world of Web3. It's definitely where it's at and what the future is. So that's where I would start. And then I would chase that idea. I would chase it, see how much it drives you, see how much it motivates you, talk to your friends about it, talk to people about it. And I am always happy, especially any Canadian women out there that are looking to launch a business. I am always happy to have that conversation with you and encourage you and talk through it with you. But I think maybe less thinking, more actually jumping in and trying to see how is this going to work? Like test it, take it for a little ride, test it. And then, you know, see how it grows, see what it's going to take to grow, and don't hesitate to pivot. We all see, you know, pivoting as, oh my gosh, we've come to a pivot in our business. What does that mean? Pivoting's good. Pivoting means that you actually can move, you can change, you can grow. And it doesn't mean you have to change your entire business. It just means you have to think a little bit differently about certain things. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, and I guess it shows that you're receiving and acting on feedback. You know, you're trying certain things that don't work, so you then try something different and so on. Huh, that's fascinating. How many women do you hope to incubate over, let's say, the next year? Like, what's your ambition at this point?
Well, the incubators for any Web3 companies, not just female founded, but I would say my ambitious goal of getting women into the world of Web3, I ideally would love to see the needle move from 5% to 20% of women in Web3 by the end of 2023, to be honest. And I can't do this alone. We can't do this alone. Obviously, there's a lot of others now that are coming online too that are trying to do the same thing. So we're looking to partner with a lot of different organizations as well. But, and we need the men to help us. I mean, you know, obviously it's not something that we can do alone. We need the men that support the women, that want the female perspective in this space, because we don't want to just be building for one subset. We want to be building for humanity, which means all perspectives have to be reflected. So everybody should want to have the female perspective in there as well. So I'm hoping that we would have around 20% of women in the space in Canada by the end of 2023. And that would be a great milestone to celebrate.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Do you have any thoughts? Because I feel like the sort of NFT digital art space is very kind of attractive to women, just because I think we're very drawn off into like aesthetics, like things that are beautiful. It just, you know, there's more of that kind of sense. Do you have any sense as to where you think this industry is going? Because obviously like the metaverse is very fascinating to a lot of people. Like what do you think will be the opportunities going forward in this space for artists to sort of develop their products?
Yeah, for artists and as a whole, I can give you my lens on it. But for artists especially, I think this is a creator economy. This is different. This is an economy where you get to create. It's a peer-to-peer network, which means you can also sell peer-to-peer. You don't have to go through an art gallery. You don't have to go through a big studio, as an artist who wants to put out music or even a movie. You actually get to engage peer-to-peer with your peers or your fan base or whomever it may be. So the opportunity there is building your own community as an artist, and then having to be able to engage with them directly and having them support you directly, and not having to give a certain percent of your proceeds to a gallery to exhibit it, and then sell it for you. So there's a ton of potential in that space. From an artistic perspective, but beyond art, because I always talk about it like art is the revolution. It always started with art, but now it's the art of the possible. The art of the possible in this space is incredible. So I'm talking about it from a business perspective, women who are looking to get into businesses too. Like I said, it's a peer-to-peer network, which means you no longer have to go through centralized entities to sell your stuff. So I'll use this as an example. I use this all the time, but it's a great one. A home in St. Petersburg, Florida was sold with the deed as an NFT. And now this is how we engage in a peer-to-peer network. It's a perfect example. With the deed being listed as an NFT, it also meant that, think about all the hurdles you have to jump through in the Western world now to own a home. Your credit score, going through a bank to get mortgage, and then, going through the lawyers and realtors. So those are 4 different hoops you have to jump through right now to own a home. But what this did was allow for the person who bought the home, obviously it was transacted on the blockchain, so cryptographically inscribed. It can't be altered. It can't be tampered with. So it's marked there and it's official. It's recorded there on the blockchain. But the purchase from peer to peer allowed that crypto to be transferred from one wallet to another without having to go through a bank, without having to worry about, your credit score, or engaging in any lawyers, or like I said, any realtors. So the idea is that they were able to keep more of the money to themselves. So when you're able to engage like that, and you don't have to go through centralized entities, there's a lot of efficiencies that are created. And because of those efficiencies, you're able to make your own money and keep your own money. That's the idea. So if you think about it, like I mentioned earlier, from an insurance perspective, if I'm an insurance company, I would want to have, all of my clients have all their valuables listed as NFTs, to solidify it as obviously it has to be a closed space and private space. And we're still going to get there with all that. But if I have some valuables, I want those valuables on the blockchain, showing that they're tied to me, and there's no way to reverse that. And so that's how insurance companies should be thinking about it, listing valuables as NFTs on their own blockchain. But even tickets, so plane tickets are going to be NFTs. Any tickets, actually concert tickets, are all going to be NFTs. University diplomas. I mean, there's this new thing that Vitalik has come out with. It's called soul bound NFTs. So SOUL, so bound to your soul. And the idea behind them, I think, is that they will be our new digital ID, because they're NFTs that are transferred to a wallet, but they can't leave your wallet. So if you think about passports or driver's license or health cards, or university diplomas, all of those have the potential to be soul bound NFTs, which is essentially digital ID if you think about it. So there's this whole world that we're entering into where we're all going to be in this space. Right now, we're still, I like to compare it to when email first came out. When we're first emailing back and forth, we're like, what do you mean we're going to just hit send and it's just going to arrive at the person? And explain this more to me, because I totally don't.
You're aging yourself now.
Oh, I'm totally aging myself. I have no problem talking about how old I am, but it's exactly where we are right now in Web3. People are like, what do you mean NFTs? It's the same concept, but the technology's here. People are using it. It's fabulous technology, actually. It's probably the greatest technology we have. And it's not to say that Web 2 has to go away. It doesn't. It just has to enable Web 3. But Web 3 enables us to build better systems. It enables us to hit reset in many different ways for many different things. And enables a lot of authenticity and trust, which is what we actually need, moving forward. So NFTs as a whole, there's a whole world behind them, even the avatars. So if you look at our art, that is digital art, but eventually, we've already given the license, the IP, more IP rights, that people can actually use them to create characters. So what I really wanted to do was enable our token holders to be able to use this to build their own businesses and companies and Etsy's and Shopify's with. and hopefully take crypto for them one day. But the idea is that they can take this piece of art, they can create a movie character out of it. They can, run it through AI and give it a face and a body and make it move, and use it for a character. They can put it on merch. They can do whatever they want with it.
Do you see a world where create a sort of a, what do you call it, like a artistically created avatar that doesn't actually exist in real life is sort of a bigger celebrity than Kim Kardashian?
Oh yeah, it's already happened. So that's already happened. You're laughing. I don't even know the name of the person, but it is an influencer who is, I think, 100% AI. I know it's 100% AI. I think she's an influencer, but yes, she's like a spokesperson now. It's already happened. These things are happening. And actually, you know what? The metaverse is a great place, and we can get into this in another segment, to build digital twins of hospitals. And if you think about it from a wait time perspective and from a triage perspective, all you need is an avatar that's been trained, an AI avatar that's been trained to ask the right questions, to understand what it is that this patient is feeling in order to be able to triage. So that will be a digital avatar, an AI avatar eventually, when we start to, our healthcare system starts to get into the metaverse as well. So all of it is coming.
Fascinating. Well, I think that's an awesome note to end on. Two things. One is, do you have any last words of advice for any female founders out there?
I think just, to wrap everything up and in summary is, I would really love to see us kind of jump in a little bit more. And I would really love to see us build a critical mass around each other and focus on our own collective, because we can't afford not to be at the forefront of this technological revolution for a number of different reasons. So much is happening in the world right now, and we need women to kind of step up to the plate, whether it's politics, whether it's business, whether it's economics, whatever it is. We need women to be in these conversations, having these conversations and influencing these conversations. So from that perspective, please don't hesitate to jump in. Don't be as afraid. It's not as scary. You can always jump out if you need to, but don't be as afraid to jump in. It's not that scary.
Very good words of advice. And lastly, where can everybody find you and VenusVerse on social websites, etc.?
Sure. So our website is www.venusverse.ca. If you go to that, you have access to everything, to our sessions, our NFT collection, our social handles, and soon to be incubator. So hopefully you come visit us. And if you need to get a hold of us, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Janelle. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.